Hello everybody, and thank you for joining us again. Today, this is Anyman, reminding you that you have and are the power. Today we'll be reading from the Superman Handbook, The Ultimate Guide to Saving the Day by Scott Beatty, and we'll be reading how to break through a door and how to tackle a runaway goon. To gain entry into a supervillain's secret sanctum, Superman can knock down most doors with the flick of one super strong finger. But even Superman has met doors he couldn't best. Lex Luthor's LexCorp building in Metropolis was famously impervious to the last son of Krypton. Even without super strength, you can root out bad guys from their hideouts and make a fast and spectacular entrance by exploiting structural weaknesses in most standard doors. Your primary tool will be your foot. Ramming the door with your shoulder or body exerts far less force than a well-placed kick. Step 1. Determine how much force will be required. Assess the door and determine how much force you'll need to apply. Generally speaking, the heavier the door, the harder you'll have to kick. Tap the door to find out if it's hollow or solid. Many modern interior doors have a hollow core and may respond quickly to a determined kick, but older homes tend to have solid wood doors. Most exterior doors, whether new or old homes, will be solid wood or have a solid core. Step 2. Find the sweet spot. Locate the point on the door where the door's latch meets the frame. If it's an interior door, the door's lock and latch may be part of the same mechanism. If it's an exterior door, look for a deadbolt security lock, usually located above the door's latch mechanism. An exterior door's latch mechanism will likely not lock. It is the deadbolt you need to kick. Step 3. Kick. With the heel of your foot, kick the lock mechanism. For greatest impact, it is important that you direct your kick as close to the lock as possible. If the door is made of lightweight or thin wood, one kick will break through. Thicker doors may require several kicks. Alternative method. The right tools. If your kicks aren't working, or you have time to retrieve your toolbox from your basement or car, the right tools can make all the difference. Screwdriver. Some bedroom or bathroom doors have an emergency access hole in the center of the door. This allows entry to the locking mechanism. By inserting a screwdriver or thin probe, you should be able to turn or push the mechanism and open the lock. Flathead screwdriver and hammer. Remove the door's hinges by placing the screwdriver's head underneath a hinge and striking the handle with the hammer. Make sure the screwdriver's head touches the end of a bolt or screw, securing the hinge to the door. Crowbar. Insert the crowbar between the lock and the door and wrench the lock off the door by prying back and forth. Alternatively, use the crowbar to pry the hinges off the door. Alternative method, steel ram. Powerful, well-placed kicks will usually do the trick, but repeated boots to a stubborn door can cost you the element of surprise. Or you could kick right through a thin door and find your foot caught in the hole. Most cops use steel rams, some one-handed, others requiring several handlers, weighing 20 pounds, which is 9 kilograms, or more to bash against the door handles and locks. A single ram wielder will break down the door. You can then step away to allow armed officers to enter. Advanced planning is required. You will need to locate a ram or similar tool and store it nearby for emergency use, and possibly recruit a friend or two to help wield the ram. Alternative method, jaws of life. Firefighters use the so-called jaws of life to dismantle crashed vehicles and free accident victims. The hydraulic prying action of this high-powered pneumatic tool makes short work of twisted metal. Law enforcement officers employ the jaws of life to tear doors off their jambs, allowing them to kick them down in short order. Because of its speed and effectiveness, this method facilitates the element of surprise. However, since this technique requires planning to track down the equipment and help from like-minded good guys, it's not likely to serve you in a pinch. How to tackle a runaway goon. The Man of Steel doesn't have much to worry about when it comes to apprehending ordinary criminals, although he has his own rogues gallery of bad guys who are capable of putting up a serious fight. Check some of them out on page 26. Luckily, you're much more likely to encounter a normal thug than you are Bizarro or Darkseid. And for the average good guy, tackling such a thug requires only sprinting speed and courage. Although sometimes a little bit of teamwork with a fellow crime fighter can be a real help. Step 1. Cut the distance. In a foot race with a fleeing criminal, your first task is to close the gap between the two of you. The person you're chasing has fight-or-flight instincts toggled directly to flight, and if nabbed, he'll fight with adrenaline-fueled desperation to get away. Try to cut the distance without telegraphing your intent to tackle him, lest he duck out of the way and leave you gripping pavement instead of his criminal coattails. Do your best to stay out of his line of sight, if he turns around to see you. This way, you can maintain an element of surprise. Step 2. Tackle. If you're alone, grab him around the middle from behind. Pinning his arms to his sides with your grasped arms. With your weight, push him forward into the ground, releasing your grip just long enough to get his arms behind his back. If you're pursuing with a partner, tackling is a little easier. One of you grabs his upper body while the other trips him and grabs his legs. Forward momentum should send the villain crashing to the ground. You can also grab one of the villain's shoulders and force him to the ground face down for cuffing. Step 3. Lock his arms with a wrist bar, arm bar, or other joint locking technique to keep him from fighting you. The simplest hold, a wrist bar, is applied by grasping the bad guy's wrist, applying pressure against the back of his hand with your thumb, and bending it back toward his arm. The movement immobilizes his hand and causes him increasing pain with added pressure. Step 3. Superman applies a wrist bar hold to keep Bizarro down for the count. Step 4. Pin him. Once the bad guy is face down on the ground with his head turned to the side so that he can breathe unhindered, pin him by placing your knee on the small of his back. Your weight alone will keep him pinned, especially if you secure both his arms behind him with his thumbs pointed inward so that he cannot get any leverage to roll out from under you or lift himself up. A knee on his neck will also work, leaving the criminal more concerned with catching his breath than fighting his way free. Step 5. Identify yourself as one of the good guys. Once he knows he's nabbed, your criminal is likely to realize that further action will only exacerbate the situation. Step 6. Search for weapons. Once the culprit is securely pinned, search him quickly for any weapons he might potentially use against you, and then put cuffs on him if you have a pair, and wait for the authorities to arrive. Most Wanted. Superman's greatest foes. For Superman, being the ultimate good guy isn't just a matter of performing heroic deeds and protecting the innocent from natural disasters. Unfortunately, the Man of Steel finds the greatest difficulty in saving people is getting past a whole host of supervillains who are actively putting people in danger. Sometimes their modus operandi is to put the public at risk to draw Superman into a fight. Here are some of the major villains who get in Superman's way regularly. As you use this book to make a name for yourself, be sure to keep an eye out for your own Lex Luthor or Bizarro. Speaking of which, Lex Luthor. The former Metropolis mogul and CEO of LexCorp is a genius, but his megalomania has given him an insatiable hunger for power and has made him incredibly jealous of Superman's superpowers. Luthor has gone so far as to run for and win the U.S. presidency, and he uses his position as the most powerful man in the Western world to enact diabolical revenge schemes against the Man of Steel. Lex will stop at nothing, including razing Metropolis, to see Superman destroyed. Raise as in razor, not as in lifting up. Metallo. Small-time thug John Corbin would have died in a car crash if not for the intervention of Professor Emmett Vale. Vale was a genius in the field of robotics, and he erroneously believed that Superman was an alien robot and a threat to humanity. So instead of simply saving John Corbin, he transplanted Corbin's brain into a robot made of a super-strong alloy called Metallo, with an especially potent power source, a 2-pound, or 0.9 kilogram, chunk of kryptonite, giving the newly christened Metallo a heart that's poisonous to the Man of Steel. Ever since he thoughtlessly rewarded Dr. Vale by murdering him, Metallo has developed a number of new abilities, including the power to absorb any metal into his robot body, making him nigh indestructible. Darkseid. Dreaded ruler of the hellish planet Apocalypse, Darkseid has a physical strength on par with Superman's, but his most feared power is the Omega Effect. Fired from his eyes, Omega beams have a number of capabilities, including completely disintegrating their target. Darkseid has an almost philosophical belief in his own supremacy, and is constantly seeking the anti-life equation, which he sees as the means to control all sentient life in the universe. The possibility that the equation is to be found somewhere on Earth regularly puts Darkseid at direct odds with Earth's greatest defender, Superman. Brainiac. When the alien Vril Dox tried to take control of his home planet Kolu, he was discorporated and scattered across space. Reconstituted as a floating consciousness with a computer-like intelligence and rechristened as the villainous Brainiac, he found his way to Earth, where he became one of Superman's most persistent foes, upgrading his computer mind again and again into different forms in an ongoing attempt to conquer Earth. Mr. Mxyzptlk. His consonant-heavy surname is pronounced Mxyzptlk, and he is Superman's weirdest enemy, stealing the title from Bizarro. Mxyzptlk hails from a fifth-dimensional world called Zerf, where science is so advanced it resembles unpredictable magic. He enjoys coming to Earth simply to torment Superman with super tricks that often bend reality in ways that he finds amusing and others find horrifying. The only way to return Mxyzptlk to Zerf is to trick him into saying, spelling, or writing his name backwards, Kiltipzixen. Once he's been tricked, Mxyzptlk can't return for 90 days. Mongol. Ruler of the star-roving mechanized Warworld, Mongol once captured the Man of Steel and pitted him against equally formidable combatants in Warworld's gladiatorial arena. When Superman would not yield to Mongol's demands to slay his opponents, Mongol challenged the Man of Steel himself in the ultimate grudge match. Superman escaped Mongol's clutches and later fought the tyrant on Earth, where he attempted to recreate it as a new Warworld, destroying scenic Coast City in the process. Mongol's son, also named Mongol, and his daughter Mongol, Mongol is not known for his originality, have also become enemies of Superman. Superman's foes. Mr. Mxyzptlk, imp from the fifth dimension. Lex Luthor, megalomaniacal genius. Mongol, master of Warworld. Metallo, powered by kryptonite. Darkseid, ruler of Apocalypse. Doomsday, who once killed Superman. Brainiac 2.5. Bizarro, nightmare version of Superman. Toyman. Toymaker Winslow Schott was a victim of corporate downsizing when Lex Luthor's LexCorp conglomerate gobbled up Schott's toy company. At first, the vengeful Toyman took out his aggressions by trying to kill Luthor. His creations were so ingenious that he was hired to build weapons for the crime group known as Intergang. Later, an increasingly unhinged Toyman targeted Metropolis children for tragedy, thus pitting Superman against Schott's weaponized toys. Schott's creations are a reminder that even the cutest wind-up toys can become a deadly weapon. General Zod. For plotting sedition on planet Krypton, the military genius General Zod was sentenced to life imprisonment within the Phantom Zone, a limitless region of limbo-like space discovered by Superman's biological father, Jor-El. In his many years trapped wraith-like in the zone, Zod watched Krypton's destruction and plotted revenge against Jor-El's only son, eventually escaping and battling Superman on Earth, where the evil general found himself gifted with the very same powers as the Man of Steel. Fortunately, Superman's years of experience aided him in defeating Zod, who remains a foe determined to destroy the House of El. Parasite. Janitor Rudy Jones was transformed by strange radiation at Star Labs into the monstrous and purple-skinned Parasite, who can absorb the memories and abilities of any living creature he touches, while draining them of life. He's become an especially powerful foe for Superman. The Man of Steel can't fight him without the risk of Parasite absorbing his powers. Doomsday. The super foe succeeded where all others in Superman's rogues gallery could not. He killed the Man of Steel. Created by the rogue alien geneticist Bertron on Krypton many millennia ago, Doomsday had an invulnerable hide covered in sharp, bony protrusions. He was bioengineered to evolve constantly and never truly be killed. Countless deaths have purged him of any weakness, making him essentially unstoppable. He first appeared in a deadly rampage across Earth that ended with Superman and Doomsday apparently killing each other on the streets of Metropolis. Fortunately, the Man of Steel returned from the dead, but so did Doomsday, now evolved into an even greater supervillain. Bizarro. One of Superman's most strange and colorful villains, Bizarro is more misunderstood than misanthropic. Still, this imperfect duplicate of Superman is a super threat because he has all of Superman's strength, but none of Superman's sanity. In Bizarro's twisted mind, everything is turned into its opposite. He lives in a world of antonyms and bad diction, thus evil and good. Fitting the theme, some of Bizarro's powers are backward. He has cold vision instead of Superman's heat vision, and he can exhale flame instead of the Man of Steel's super cold breath. It's his abusive language that really upsets the grammarians, however. Speaking of which, bad English, how to speak Bizarro. Bizarro World, sometimes called Try, Earth spelled backwards, is cube-shaped and a decidedly odd place to visit. Following the Bizarro logic that good is bad and bad is good, Superman himself was imprisoned there for the crime of being normal. So if you're planning a trip there, it's even more important than usual to learn the local language. Here are some simple rules of grammar you should keep in mind when attempting to converse with Bizarro and his people. Rule 1. Substitute the pronoun me for I in all speech. The personal pronouns he and she should be replaced with him and her, respectively. Essentially, Bizarro speak at its core is baby talk for adults. Rule 2. Am should be substituted for all to-be verb tenses, such as is, are, etc. Or you can just mix up verb tenses each time for the Bizarro effect. Rule 3. Double negatives, know nothing, etc. are completely appropriate and should be randomly and frequently inserted into otherwise normal sentences. Rule 4. The meaning of Bizarro sentences is often the opposite of what is intended. Bad is good, down is up, and happy is sad. Rule 5. Exclamations should be reversed with negative exhortations substituted for positive ones, and vice versa. But not always. If you speak in opposites with total consistency, you would be much easier to understand, and that would be bad. Rule 6. Frequently begin sentences with bah. Bah. Rule 7. Laugh inappropriately with a hearty ho ho when the situation would otherwise call for sympathy. And remember the Bizarro code. Us do opposite of all earthly things. Us hate beauty. Us love ugliness. And big crime to make anything perfect on Bizarro World. Now that you know the rules, try these simple statements on for size. Example 1. Standard English. Oh no, we are being invaded by living blue kryptonite creatures. Bizarro speak. Hooray! Us am being invaded by living blue kryptonite creatures. Example 2. Great job, Jimmy. I'm rewarding you by giving you a raise. Bizarro speak. Bad job, Jimmy.
Me reward you by lowering your salary. Example 3, Standard English. I'm having a wonderful time. Bizarro speak. Me am not having terrible time. There. Now you am not ready to speak Bizarro. Me wish you bad luck. Hello!
Well, that was a little bit of levity for you, but also a few valuable insights. Hopefully you can put these to good use. This is Anyman reminding you that you have and are the power. Use it wisely and use it well.